ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download. Sports fans from all around the globe, I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week with good friend and colleague, Mr. Brady Kannon, Tea Time Wagers. Go follow him on X at Las Vegas Golfer and, of course, on the Sports Grid. This week's headline is Scottie up for the Charles Schwab Challenge. Another major win for Scottie in his bag. Me and Brady been talking backstage for a few minutes. We'll bring that conversation up. As Scottie, if you looked at the leaderboard at the start of Sunday and you took a lunch break at the turn and you saw him and Rahm tied, you're like, oh, we're in for a doozy here. Yeah, it was more like a snoozy by the time this thing finished. But we'll get into that. First and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download the app, it is free. AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com, you know the drill by now. Head on over to Facebook, introduce yourself to Terry Smith. Come on back to AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Steaks, chops, seafood, appetizers, wine. Terry's got it all. He's got 4 subscription plans. Just set it and forget it like I do. Every 30 days, a box of protein delivered to your front door religiously. The only thing you'll need is a spare tank of propane. So without further ado, Mr. Brady Kannon.
Good morning, Jeffrey. How are you, sir? Another major behind us. We're halfway through the golf major season, 2 in the books, with Rory and Scottie, both taking down a major championship in 2025. No surprise, I guess. A couple of the best players in the world. Certainly we know who the best player in the world is. And we thought for a minute that might be Rory, but Scottie said, no, I'm not done yet, guys. Just remarkable, I think. The performance at the Byron Nelson the week before was certainly dominant, but a different deal. Nobody, not a whole lot of people of note in that field. A very easy golf course, and Scottie took it apart. He kind of did the same thing at a major with an extremely difficult golf course and the best field in the world, and kind of took a little bit of the drama out of it. Now, you look at Bryson finished second. That on paper would look like, oh man, what a great tournament it must have been. Rahm was right there and then fell off, as you mentioned. But I ended up. We talked about it on the program. I ended up with DeChambeau on the card because I just couldn't avoid it. He made way too much sense for that golf course. And we saw basically everything I was talking about come to fruition, except for he really struggled with the iron play. And really on Sunday, the short irons were, he put himself in position time and time again with incredible work off the tee. And that's why he had such an advantage at this golf course. But he couldn't take advantage of what he was doing off the tee. His short irons really failed him. His putting was excellent, but it was the in-between game, from anywhere from 100 to 175 yards out. He was not stuffing it in there close and ended up finishing second, which is a credit to him. But the Green Mile got him on Saturday. He had gotten to the lead. Tied. I think he was either in the lead or tied for the lead. I think he might have been in the lead at 8 under par. and then played the final 3 holes in 4 over or something like that, I believe. Made a double. I think it was 3 over. Final 3 holes in 3 over. Made a double and a bogey, and then made a really good par on 18. But that was on Saturday, and it felt like just when the golf tournament was getting going and Rahm was kind of there lurking and Bryson had gone to the lead, and we're like, okay, here we go. Here it comes. Right when we got there, and then coupled with Bryson, stumbling down the last 3 holes on Saturday. Conversely, Scottie goes nuts on the last 4 or 5 holes on Saturday. And next thing you know, you go into Sunday and he's got a 3-shot advantage. And I thought that right there on Saturday afternoon was the end of the golf tournament. And, of course, there was going to be, he stumbled a little bit on Sunday and brought Rahm back into the picture. And again, you and I talked about this backstage as well. It felt like a massive difference in this golf tournament, both on Saturday and on Sunday, is people, the majority of the field and a couple of the guys that were trying to make a charge, specifically in Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, ended up struggling mightily with the 3 most difficult holes on the golf course, 16, 17, and 18, to finish their rounds. While, again, conversely, Scottie made those holes look pedestrian. Just absolutely incredible. I mean, on Saturday, he played the final 3 holes in 2 under. And I think, the bogey on the last hole on Sunday doesn't even really count with a 6-shot lead. Basically, he played him an even par on Sunday. So that's really where he separated himself at the hardest, most pressure-packed point of the golf course on the weekend. That was kind of how he got it done. But, people also talk about his play just looks vanilla, and, it's certainly not Tiger in the fact that it's like swashbuckling and electric, but it's also extremely Tiger in that he's just, is this guy a good front runner or what? He doesn't come back to back.
Shout out to Amber Holly. Good morning, Amber. Thank you so much for tuning in. So many ways to go here. I had reached out to Mr. Benson, Jeffrey Benson at the Circa, just following the market and the moves on Rahm pre-flop. Going into Sunday, they will welcome anyone wanting to bet against Scottie in the field. They were offering plus 365 to the no for Scottie Scheffler with a 3-shot lead. Right there, that should be alarming. I think it was more minus 450 if you wanted to bet on him to win. You talk about the swashbuckling. The people want to see excitement. I compared Bryson to almost, not in a bad way, Happy Gilmore, getting the fans up, the fist pumps, the hand slaps. We know Tiger with the fist pumps. And here's Scottie that just stays off the roller coaster. Mm-hmm. Just a gentleman-like mentality, just like hit it straight, I'll figure it out. And I think you saw exactly what the rest of the field knows what's going on with the mad scientist there going into the back 9, never mind the Green Mile where Rahm just blew up like a wood tick.
Yeah, no, the silent assassin, I mean, that's what's, it's frustrating. And I said this on social media. I think it was on Sunday after the final round that we ended up with 2 runner-up finishers. We had Harris English and Bryson DeChambeau, both finished second. But like I said, after, at the end of the day on Saturday, the golf tournament never even felt that close. It never felt like English or DeChambeau really had much of a chance because of who the leader was and the way he was in such control of this golf tournament. And then the other thing I said was it's really starting to feel like it was 25 years ago trying to bet against Tiger when he's even money or plus 150 or plus 250 to win a major championship. And you're like, okay, I think it might be Duval's time or Phil's ready to get him or VJ. No. And it's very similar. And part of that, I remember going back to those days of Tiger, and I was like, gosh, it's not a lot of fun to watch when there's no drama. He's just crushing everybody. But this particular PGA, it felt like that the drama was kind of gone, but at the same time, it was something to watch him just go through that work that he did, and barely had a slip up, especially on the back nine. Made a couple of bogeys on the front side, but just righted the ship and went along without a glitch. And the guy's putting's improved too, which is really scary. He's starting to roll in a lot of birdies and stuff, and so that was kind of compelling for me to watch, just the way he charged down that back nine on Sunday, had the tournament in his clutch, in his control, probably for the last 36 hours, and just never blinked. And then I love the slamming of the hat on the green and the yeah. Here's a guy that's supposed to be such the good old boy from next door, and lets it all out with a curse word, which I thought was cool and appropriate, and shows that he's kind of human and how much was built up inside of him, and throws that hat down and and I was like, he's a lion.
Before we dig into the Charles Schwab here, let's set the tone now. Rory wins the Masters, probably the greatest Masters Sunday we've ever witnessed. Scottie comes back at the PGA. Kind of been waiting for Xander to fire. Last year, Xander had an amazing year, coming off an injury now. We've been touting Oberg. I'm starting to have some question marks with him. Justin Thomas is having a great year, misses the cut, and this course will do it to you. Set the tone right now moving forward. We still have two majors. We have a Ryder Cup. We got the FedEx Cup. What does Brady Kannon see moving forward?
Well, and I wrote this a few weeks prior to the PGA, that the last two guys I wanted to be on at Quail Hollow were Rory and Justin Thomas, because I felt the spotlight and the expectation was going to be so incredibly heavy on both of those guys coming in, that I felt, it wasn't, they weren't going to be able to meet those expectations. Rory coming off of a high point of his entire lifetime. You and I mentioned it. He's still exhaling off of that Masters victory. We all still are. That's why a lot of people, I think, were let down by this PGA, because it wasn't the greatest golf tournament you've ever seen in your life, like we saw in early April. And then JT going to a place where he won the PGA in 2017, coming off of a recent win at Harbour Town. Everything, here he goes, here he comes. It's like, no, not yet, guys. Oberg, I bet him back in January to win the PGA, because he won at Torrey Pines. And I've mentioned it many times, the connection with Torrey Pines and Quail Hollow. And he didn't fire. By the way, you look at the connection between Torrey Pines and Quail Hollow. Guess who's done extremely well at Torrey Pines? And guess who was on that leaderboard at Quail Hollow? Alex Noren. Alex Noren lost in a playoff at Torrey Pines to Jason Day. Tony Finau. Tony Finau has maybe a better career record at Torrey Pines than anybody. John Rahm. First PGA Tour victory at Torrey Pines, U.S. Open victory at Torrey Pines. So we were not off on our connection with Torrey Pines and Quail Hollow. There was a lot of guys on that leaderboard. Harris English won at Torrey Pines earlier this year. So, like you said, you can't pick them all. We picked Oberg. He didn't fire. Some of the other guys did. Victor Hovland was a guy that I had thoughts about going into this week. He did not fire. Koepka, boy, there's some issues there. I certainly don't think Rahm's done it all. I think, and I wanted to bet him if he was still in the 20s for the U.S. Open, I was gonna hit submit. but he's down to about 14 is what I've seen, and I'm not ready to push the button there just yet. Scottie's not going away. Obviously, I don't see him changing anytime soon, and I hope he doesn't, because this is historic. We could be headed for something that is, of that level, that Jack Tiger type stuff. And he joined that club. First guy to have 15 PGA Tour victories and 3 major championships before the age of 29. Scottie, Tiger, Jack. That's it. That's the list. So, gosh. Yeah, I think the bloom is off the rose a little bit for Oberg. He hasn't, but let's not forget, guy just finished 7th at the Masters and was that close to being in the playoff with Rory and Rose too. That's only 5 or 6 weeks ago. So not quite ready to just write him off, but that's 2 missed cuts in a PGA in a row. Last year he was dealing with some injury. So I'm not sure, but certainly the guy's not going away because he is way too good. And I believe probably certainly is a top 10 player in the world, maybe top 5. So, this is just one of those things. You can't win them all, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another victory before the year's over. Not necessarily a major, but another PGA Tour victory.
My headliner is Scottie up for the Charles Schwab Challenge here. The numbers are just off the charts here. Scottie plus 240. Then we go to Berger at plus 2,200. Jordan Spieth the same at 2,200. Matsuyama missed the cut, plus 2,500. Tommy Fleetwood 2,500. Maverick McNeely 3,000. I talk about the tournament before a major. I always talk about the tournament after the major, especially if you're getting lathered up for a major and you're scheduled to, now compete the following week. But we're talking to someone who's really not human, and that's Scottie Scheffler. And I think if he was going to a Muni course, he'd be out there to rip everyone's head off. So it's kind of tough to gauge this week, Brady.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's also, by the way, going for 3 victories in a row. He won the Nelson, won the PGA, and back in his home state of Texas, where he loves to play. He's been right there at this golf tournament before, held off by all people, none other than Davis Riley last year, and also was in a battle down the stretch here a few years ago with his friend Sam Burns. Burns ended up winning. So he's been right there in the mix before. And I landed on Daniel Berger this week, and it felt to me very similar to my selection of Bryson DeChambeau last week. I knew it was going to be extremely popular, and it was, but I couldn't leave him off the card because it made too much sense. And sure enough, the guy ends up finishing 2nd. This week, I knew Daniel Berger was going to be popular. He makes way too much sense, and I couldn't leave him off the card. And sure enough, I get the report from BetMGM. He is number 3 in highest ticket count percentage this week. He is number 3 as far as their biggest liabilities. And who's number 1? Yeah, Mr. Scheffler. And number 2 is Jordan Spieth. No real surprise there. But again, I couldn't avoid Daniel Berger. When I crunch all the stats, he comes out 2nd to Scottie Scheffler. Scheffler's number 1 on my board this week, which he typically is if he's in the field. And Berger's number 2. And I wrote for golf.com, I said, is Daniel Berger going to finish 2nd in the golf tournament to Scottie Scheffler? Probably. Yeah. So, yeah, and I don't think the price is awful, as crazy as that sounds. But I couldn't get there. It is so short, and it's so hard to bet a guy. Jeff, that I've bet on Scottie Scheffler successfully 2 years in a row at the Hero World Challenge, where he was plus 225. I think the year before he was 4-1 or something like that. That's a field of 20 guys. You give me 2 or 3-1 with Scottie against 20 guys, sure, I'll take it. Against 150, it's hard to get there. So. No, I would almost be surprised if he didn't win this week. The numbers are telling you that he has 10 times the chance to win this thing than does Jordan Spieth or Daniel Berger or Maverick McNeely. I don't know. Is that accurate?
Colonial Golf Course, correlated courses that you were looking at when you came up with your data?
Well, first of all, I love this stretch of golf that we're on here. We got the PGA, the Byron Nelson has become a tournament, not like it once was, but the legend himself, Byron Nelson. Now you go to Hogan's Alley, where he won here at Colonial a record 5 times. The longest running PGA Tour event, by the way, to be held at the same golf course. 79th edition here of, what's been called a number of different things with sponsor changes, but Colonial, let's call it Colonial. That's what it is for me. Tremendous golf course that has actually been redesigned. Gil Hance and Jim Wagner coming here at the end of the 2023 tournament. This golf course held the U.S. Open in 1941. And what they tried to really do was kind of restore the golf course back to what it looked like for that Open and create the rugged aesthetics and the bunkering. The course had kind of been so cleaned up, was really looking more like a resort course and a modern day country club. And they wanted to kind of bring it back to its roots. Bring the Trinity River more into play, bring the barrancas, the arroyos, the gullies and the gulches that exist around the golf course. And I think make it more difficult in the end and bring some of that charm back to it that was a part of the 1941 U.S. Open. And apparently it's been extremely well received. The winning score proposition bet, again, from our friend Jeff Sherman over at the Westgate Superbook, 13.5 under par. So no cupcake here expected, no birdie fest expected. It's a short golf course. It's not even 7,300 yards, but it is a par 70, and it's narrow and it's got all kinds of dog legs. And I think it's really kind of a beautiful thing. A couple things here. A friend of mine many, many years ago told me, pay attention to what happens at Colonial when you're handicapping the U.S. Open. And the U.S. Open has kind of morphed over the years from what it used to be. But for the most part, we're used to Olympic Club and Shinnecock and it's fairways and greens, drive it straight and get a hot putter. And that's how you win a U.S. Open. And that's exactly what Ben Hogan did. Maybe the ultimate precision ball striker in the history of the game, drive it accurate, ball striking, greens in regulation, find a hot putter. And what did Hogan do? He won the U.S. Open 4 times, and he won here at Colonial 5 times. So I still heed that advice that Colonial can be an indicator to U.S. Open success. And I think those are the same type of skill sets that work here. Strokes gained approach, greens in regulation, good drives gained, driving accuracy. And then I go a little further down and look at it hole proximity from, 125 to 175. The par 4s here, some of them are in the neighborhood of the average par 4 length here is about 420 to 430. And then putting on bent grass. So there are some, it's kind of that connection, U.S. Open, Ben Hogan, Colonial. They're all relatable. And the skill sets needed here at this golf course. As far as correlated courses, not necessarily that Hogan U.S. Open connection, but those shorter, more accuracy-based golf courses. And I think the connection here is pretty darn strong. I have leaned on the connection with the Sony Open at YLA Country Club in the past and actually hit Kevin Na at the Sony a few years ago because I saw how well he had done at Colonial. And I still like to use that connection there. Chris Kirk, we've seen a number of guys do really well at both of those courses. Sea Island, home of the RSM Classic in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Harbor Town, of course, the RBC where they play after the Masters. YLA, I mentioned, and then also Port Royal Golf Club where they play the Bermuda Championship. Just 4 courses that I used for corollaries this week, but I do believe that they're pretty strong.
Well, I'm going to put you to the lead tee box so you can release your outrights.
All right, here we go. I mentioned Daniel Berger, number 3 in highest ticket count, number 3 in biggest liability for BetMGM. All that stuff scares me. Same formula that Bryson was last week. All that stuff scared me last week as well. He ended up finishing second. Berger, maybe he finishes second. We talked about that. He's won here, by the way, Daniel Berger in 2020. Runner-up at the RSM Classic last November. Finished third at Harbor Town when JT won back in April. Top 15 twice, top 10 once at the Sony Open. So the guy meets all the criteria, and that game is certainly coming back around for Daniel Berger, like we've talked about many times over the last year and a half on this show. And this is a great track for him. Maybe he'll get it done, but I had a hard time leaving him off the card because he just makes too much sense. And then Maverick McNeely finished ahead of Berger at the RSM Classic back in November when he got his very first PGA Tour win. Top 10 finishes at the Sony. Also, like Berger, just finished third back in April at the RBC Heritage. Fourth in this field for greens in regulation gained. 15th for good drives gained over the last 24 rounds. All my guys, by the way, 6 selections this week. All of them did pretty well at the PGA Championship. All of them made the cut. All of them were top 20, top 30, top 40. Next one is JT Poston, who was top 5, finished 5th last week at the PGA Championship. He has now made 13 cuts in a row on the PGA Tour this season, quietly having a fantastic campaign. And like I say, a top 5 at the PGA, 11th at Harbor Town back in April. And in addition to that, he's had 4 other top 10 finishes at the RBC Heritage. He's been top 10 here at Colonial, at Sea Island, at the Sony. 21st in this field for hole proximity from 100 to 125. Really good with those wedges. 12th in driving accuracy. 10th for strokes gained putting on bent grass. Harry Hall, a UNLV Rebel, 75 to 1. Nearly won here at Colonial a few years back. Ended up finishing third, had the, I believe, maybe 36 and 54 hole lead. That was really kind of probably the first breakout tournament for Harry Hall, who in the last couple of years has been playing very well and has 2 top 20 finishes in a row at the Myrtle Beach Classic, and then finished 19th last week at the PGA Championship. I think his first ever PGA Championship. Pretty darn good to take 19th. Third, he can really putt the lights out. Third in this field for strokes gained putting on bent grass over the last 24 rounds. 10th on the 400 to 450 yard par 4s. 20th in hole proximity from 150 to 175. And then Thorbjorn Olesen at 80 to 1. This guy is quite an interesting and, a little bit infamous story. He had 7 wins worldwide. He's never won on the PGA Tour, but he had 7 wins worldwide roughly a decade ago, and then had an ugly episode on an airplane where he got really drunk and got himself into a lot of trouble and was removed from the DP World Tour. Since reinstated, I think in 2021, and has won a couple more times. Seems like he's gotten his life together, and now the golf game is coming together as well. He was just excellent at the PGA Championship last week. He's got 2 top 10 finishes this season. 33rd last week at the PGA. He was 11th in the field for strokes gained approach and in greens in regulation, and 17th for driving accuracy. Back before the unfortunate incident and his career went sideways for a minute, he was basically a top 20 player in the world. And it looks like he's maybe headed that direction again. And he could be ready. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the mix at all this week. So Thorbjorn Olesen at 80 to 1. And then Nico Echeverria at 135 to 1. Already has 2. And this guy, interesting. I bet him on Monday, I believe it was, at 135 to 1. I've already seen this guy down to as low as 80 to 1. He's getting pounded at Circa. And this is not people following me. This is other people with that are moving markets a lot more than I probably ever will. But apparently, I was on somebody there that people really liked this week. 41st at Quail Hollow last week. That makes now 3 straight majors that he has made the cut. He's only played 5 majors ever in his career. This is a young kid. He's now made the cut in 3 straight major championships. Last week at the PGA, he was 14th in the field for strokes gained off the tee, 18th on approach, 27th for strokes gained putting, and was 9th in that field last week for driving accuracy. And by the way, he has finished runner-up at both the Sony Open and the RSM Classic. So I think this guy makes a lot of sense this week as well. Do you want to go buy on him at 80-1 now? I'd probably like to get triple digits, maybe 90 at a minimum, but 135-1, that's probably gone by now. If you could still find triple digits, I think it's a pretty good play. And who knows, maybe he'll win. It doesn't necessarily matter the price if they cash the ticket, right?
That's right. All for top 20s, and you said Nico for a top 40?
That's correct. Yeah, I played them all for top 20. Nico, I played for top 40.
2 head-to-heads this week?
Yeah, I just found 2 that I like, and it's a couple guys I'm on for outrights as well. I took Maverick McNeely. I got minus 105. I've seen minus 110 over Jordan Spieth. And Spieth has won here before, typically plays very well in his home state of Texas, just did well a couple weeks ago at the Nelson. But I thought McNeely as a dog was a good play. And then Thorbjorn Olesen, I was able to get plus 115. I've seen as low as plus 105. I think plus 105 or better is not a bad play over Brian Harman. Harman, of course, has a win recently, but really hasn't been great this year. And like I say, Olesen has really been on the up and coming here, in his return to the the spotlight of golf. And I believe this is only his first or second year playing full time on the PGA Tour. He was a DP World Tour guy for many, many years, but he's really starting to be on the come. And I thought as a decent sized price dog to Harman was a good bet as well.
Our good friend, Mr. Gaskell. Hey, boys, still reeling from Cantlay missed cut, costing me a 10-legged parlay. Good luck with the picks. Week off for me. I got 2 names before we leave here. One, it's a flash fade. He probably would miss the cut. He's currently 49-1. Any thoughts on Bobby McIntyre this week?
I like Bobby Mack a lot, and I do believe there are some connections with this golf course and where McIntyre won the Canadian Open. I think it was last year. I have seen people cite some connections between those golf courses, and I can understand that. He's obviously a world-class player. It wouldn't surprise me at all. He can get really hot with the putter, and that helps him a lot around this place. But at the same time, Jeff, it's starting to smell to me like a Bo Hostler or a Keith Mitchell, where the wise guys are just betting this guy every week.
Okay.
If you look at the markets, the wise guys hit Bo Hostler and Keith Mitchell every week, and they never win. And it's starting to look that way with McIntyre. I've noticed that for a few weeks here, that Bobby Mack's getting hit every week. And not every player makes sense every week. I liked McIntyre. I'm trying to remember when it was. Maybe the Masters, I thought McIntyre was a pretty good bet. And if I recall, he did pretty well. But I think the guy's good enough where he can probably win just about anywhere at any week. But that was just my observation. You know how there's guys in golf that, like Michael Thorbjornsen or whatever, the kid out of Stanford, the young kid who, is kind of a semi-rookie. I think technically his rookie year was last year. A friend of mine over at Circa said, they're betting him every week because he looks like a guy that's going to win pretty soon. I don't know if that's the case with McIntyre, but it's looked that way to me the last few weeks.
Well, it's funny because you brought up Keith Mitchell and you talked last week about a Bombers course. Everyone run into the window. I mean, Bombers course, Keith Mitchell, first round leader. Who comes out of the woodwork? I didn't hear
Yeah.
anyone talking about Johnny Vegas.
And he is and going back, he's not a guy that you expect to be a contender in a major championship. I think the highest he'd ever finished in a major was 20th. But the strength of Johnny Vegas's game is 1,000% driving the golf ball. So he made sense. He's a tremendous driver of the golf ball. He can't putt worth a lick, and that's why he doesn't always win. But it was not surprising to see him driving the ball long and straight. We talked about it last week, total driving. And that's who that golf course, Quail Hollow, caters to. So, yeah, Johnny Vegas had himself a day for a few days.
Last name I'm going to throw at you, someone looking to win on the PGA for the first time. He's getting hit pretty good this week. Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah. He makes a ton of sense at this course. It's not overwhelmingly long, and Fleetwood can handle just about anything. He is amazing sometimes that even on the longest golf courses, it doesn't matter. He's not the longest hitter in the world, but he's deadly accurate, tremendous ball strike. I mean, he's a top 15 player in the world. He's fantastic. And I love Tommy. It's interesting to note his best two major championships over the course of his career have been the British Open and the US Open. I bet him a while back. He's having an outstanding year, by the way. Hasn't won, but just look at his results. I don't think he's finished lower than about 22nd. And I'm not sure what he did at the PGA, but for the most part, he's been top 20 or better just about every week. So I bet him for the US Open because I know he's so good. And we talked about the Hogan formula, ball striking, accuracy. It's very much Tommy Fleetwood. And so I bet him at 50-1. He's now down to 35-1 to win the US Open, which I don't love that number. I think if you can get a good enough number on Tommy, he's worth a play almost every week. But now it looks like he's been beaten up a little bit in the market. And do I want him at 25? You got to believe he's going to win on the PGA Tour eventually. He's won too many times all over the world. He's that good. It's just obviously hard to guess when it's going to happen. But I thought about him too. Absolutely makes sense for this golf course, maybe more so than he does at a lot of other places. So,
well, you're moving the market from 50 to 35, so congrats on that one.
Yep.
Scroller going, everyone knows at Las Vegas Golfer, golf.com, golf bet, PGA Tour, Sports Grid. We always wrap up this segment, Brady. Tell them where to find your written work, of course, and your schedule on the Sports Grid.
Yeah, I'll be on Sports Grid not all weekend long, no Sunday show this time, but Saturday evening with Adam Kaufman. And then, of course, tonight, 7:30 Eastern, and then also 10 p.m. Eastern with Gabe Morency. Golf.com, you can go there, the Twitter feed, whatever, and find the articles if you want a little deeper detail on the written work. And also, I'm writing an additional column for golf.com now after the cut on Fridays. So when we get through the cut here at Colonial Friday afternoon, Friday evening, I'll have another article up there on golf.com. And that's basically who I like going into the weekend. And last week for the PGA, I wrote who I liked going into the weekend. And I'll do a follow and a fade, who I want to back going into the weekend and who I want to fade going into the weekend. And it was pretty darn good. The guys I wanted to back going into the weekend at Quail Hollow were Bryson DeChambeau and Harris English. And the guy I wanted to fade over the weekend was Max Homa. All that worked out, but then Scottie spoiled the party for us. So anyway, but that Friday article now is a new edition.
Well, I want to thank everyone for watching and listening. We'll be back next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Where are we teeing off next Wednesday, Brady?
Jack's Place, baby, the Memorial. So the trifecta of legends continues. We go from the Byron Nelson to Ben Hogan's place to Jack's Place in Columbus, Ohio. Is it Columbus? No, Dublin, Ohio, next week for the Memorial. A really good, I would say other than Riviera, probably my second favorite golf tournament on tour. I like Harbor Town a lot too. Second or third favorite golf tournament on tour that's not a major. It's a big boy event.
For myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Investor, the one and only Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golf. And make sure you check out his written work, of course, and check him out on the Sports Grid as well. Tomorrow, 11 a.m., Matthew George talking some NBA here. And then at 11:35, Mr. Terry Smith, CEO, founder of Atlanta Steaks and Seafood. We'll see what he's got on tap and on special for Memorial Day weekend. Everyone, have a great, great day and stay tuned.